Right? A blue one. Blue one. Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This week's Parashat, Parashat Yitro, is a fascinating parasha. 10 Commandments. And the beginning of the parasha is talking about an interesting individual. The father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu, Yitro. The Torah says, speaking about Yitro, Vayishma Yitro Kohen Midian. Yitro, the priest of Midian, heard Choten Moshe, Moshe's father-in-law, et kol asher asa Elokim Moshe Israel. Whatever Hashem did to Moshe and Israel, Ki hotzi Hashem et Israel Mitzrayim, that Hashem took out Israel from Mitzrayim. So this is one place where we find Yitro. There is later on in the Torah another place where we find Yitro. And where is that? It is in the book of Bamidbar.
Where the Torah tells Moses how to delegate other people.
This is actually in Mishpatim. This is next week.
Or
But later on in Bamidbar, we find that Moshe speaks to Yitro. Now, when Yitro, in this week's parasha, speaks to, here is what Moshe, what happened to Moshe and to Am Israel. He comes to see Moshe with Tzipporah, the wife of Moshe, and their children, the children of Moshe and Tzipporah. And then the Torah speaks about it, and we have the 10 Commandments. But just before the 10 Commandments, interestingly, it says, and you could look at it on page 400, verse 26, or actually 27. By the way, I made a mistake. It's in this week's parasha that Yonatan, that Yitro gives this advice to Moshe to have different judges to judge the people. Okay. But in Chavzayin, Pasuk Chavzayin, verse 27, it says, Vayishlach Moshe et choteno vayelech lo el arzo. Moshe sent his father-in-law just before the 10 Commandments, the giving of the Torah, vayelech lo el arzo, and he went back to his land. Which land? The land of Midian. Okay, so far so good. So it seems from here that Yitro was present or was not present when the Torah was given?
It would seem like he was not.
It seems like he was not. Okay. Later on in the Sefer Bamidbar, on page 784, so it is Bamidbar, Perek Yud, chapter 10, verse 29, Pasuk Chavtet. It says, Vayomer Moshe lechovav ben Reuel ha-Midiani, Choten Moshe. Moshe speaks to Chovav. Who is Chovav? Chovav is Choten Moshe, the father-in-law of Moshe. Chovav is Yitro. Rashi says that Yitro had 7 different names. Okay? And he tells them, Moshe tells them, Nos'im anachnu lamakom asher amar Hashem oto eten lachem, lecha itanu ve'etavnu lach, ki Hashem diber tov al Yisrael. Come with us, tells them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us, promised us a land. Come with us. Vayomer elav lo elech, ki melati ve'el morati elech. Tells them, no. Yitro tells them, no, I'm going to go back to my country, to my land. Vayomer al na ta'azov otanu, ki al ken yada'at achanotenu v'yida'ita lanu le'enayim. Tells them, Moshe is speaking with them. Tell them, no, don't leave us. We need you here. והיה כי תלך עמנו והיה הטוב ההוא אשר היטיב השם עמנו והיטבנו לך. Says, no, if you go with us, whatever Hashem was going to do, the good that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bestow upon us, we're going to give you. ויסעו מהר השם דרך 3 ימים, ואהרון ברית השם נוסע לפניהם דרך 3 ימים, נתנו להם מלוכה, וענן השם עליהם יומם בנוסף מן המחנה. Then he says that they went together. So it seems from here that Yitro was there. So what is going on? There's a stira. There seems to be a contradiction, right? What's exactly the pshat? How could we understand this? What seems to be a contradiction. Okay, so let me show you a few questions about it. First of all, was Yitro there? Yes or no? This is one of the obvious questions. The second one is, what was the final outcome of the conversation that Moshe had with Yitro, with his father-in-law in the book of Bamidbar? The Torah doesn't record any conclusion. Did he stay with them? Did he go back to Midian? Where was Yitro? Seems to be a mystery. Okay? And besides that, another question is, why does the Torah bichlal bother to speak about Yitro? To say that Yitro came and so on and so forth. Well, what is it so important? Is it so? I mean, if it's written, it must be a lesson. We have to learn something out of that. So that's another question. So, the Gemara in Masechet Zvachim says that there is really a machloket. There is a difference of opinion between two rabbis, Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Eliezer. And what is it about? It is about the beginning of our parasha, where it says Vayishma Yitro. Yitro heard. Question is, what did he hear? Torah doesn't say what he heard. He heard something. What did he hear? So there's a machloket Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua, where Rabbi Yehoshua says that it came, that he heard the war of Amalek, that Amalek came to fight Am Israel, last week's parasha, okay? And Rabbi Eliezer says that it was Aseret Hadibrot. He heard the news of the revelation. The revelation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed himself to Am Israel. So there is machloket Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehoshua. What is exactly the machloket between them? What is exactly the point of argument that they have? The point of argument is the following. Rabbi Yehoshua holds that everything has to go according to the flow of the text. So according to the flow of the text, it makes sense. Why? Yitro heard. What did he hear? What happened in last week's parasha? What happened in last week's parasha? Amalek. Amalek comes to attack Am Israel as they come out of Mitzrayim. Then Yitro hears about it and he comes. Rabbi Eliezer says no. It's talking about the revelation. Now, how is it possible to talk about the revelation? If you heard the revelation, Vayishma, the revelation comes after that. Later on in the parasha, we see the revelation. So if it's after that, it's not. There's no flow. So how does Rabbi Eliezer mean? How could you hold that? And the answer is that we have a fundamental rule in the Torah, which is En Mukdam Umeuhad B'Torah, that the Torah is not a history book where everything has to be in order. And Rabbi Eliezer holds that in this case, obviously we try to always have it flowing, but in certain cases it doesn't. And this is one of the cases Rabbi Eliezer holds, and that's why it's true that it seems from the text that the revelation Ma'amad Har Sinai came after, but it didn't. It came before, then Yitro hears about it, and then he comes. So this is Machlok Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua. Okay? And this is, by the way, could explain the two different texts that we find in Sefer Shemot and in Sefer Bamidbar, Right? In a sense, it's a continuation. Whatever happened in Sefer Bamidbar is a continuation to what started in Sefer Shemot. Why? Because as we say, En Mukdam Muhar Torah. Sometimes the Torah doesn't have a flow. It doesn't follow necessarily. It's not like a history book that everything has to follow. And therefore, Bamidbar, whatever is written in book of Bamidbar, is connected to what's written already in book of Shemot.
Could he not have heard too, though, like about the parting of the sea and those miracles as well? That's
Definitely.
That's a bit of a revelation too. Just, I mean, not like at Har Sinai, but just still, like the fact that, you know, all the plagues, everything that happened there, and then the parting of the sea, and then, you know, Egypt, the soldiers perishing. Like,
Right.
So
Rashi says
that's
that.
quite something too.
Rashi says that as well. You're right. Rashi says that. He says that this is two things: Amalek, and also the fact that they came out of Egypt. The fact that Kriyat Yam Suf, the splitting of the Red Sea, and so on and so forth. Now, with this in mind, with this machloket with Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, many of the commentators later on, each one maintains either like Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbi Yoshua. And I'll share some of the commentators with you. The first one is the Ibn Ezra. Listen to what the Ibn Ezra says. He says, "Vayishma Yitro." Yitro heard. Yizkir lemala devar Amalek. Just before that, we spoke about Amalek. כי לרפידים בה. והייתה ראויה פרשה בחודש השלישי להיות כתובה אחר דבר עמלק. Really, says the Ibn Ezra, the parasha talking about Mount Sinai should have come immediately after the war that with Amalek, or the fact that Amalek came. כי שם כתוב האיסור מרפידים ויבואו מדבר סיני. Why? Because there the Torah says already that from Refidim, where Amalek attacked Am Israel, where did they go? What was the next step? Har Sinai. מדבר סיני. אם כן, למה נכנס דברי יתרו בין שתי הפרשיות? She has a very good question. It says, so why does the parasha, the paragraph of Yitro, comes in between these two parashiyot, the parasha of Amalek and the parasha, the text of Har Sinai? והגאון אמר כי יתרו בא אל מדבר סיני לפני מתן תורה. So he says, there's one opinion that says that Yitro came to Midbar Sinai, to the desert, the Sinai desert, before Matan Torah, before the Torah was given. ולפי דעתי, he says, in my opinion, says the Ibn Ezra, שלא בא רק בשנה השנית אחר שהוקם המשכן. He came 2 years after the Mishkan was erected, כי כתוב בפרשה עולה וזבחים לאלוקים. Why? Because what's his proof? It says by Yitro in this week's parasha that they brought Ola Uzvahim, sacrifices. Where would they bring sacrifices? Must be a place. What's this place? The Mishkan. So the Ibn Ezra says, according to this, he holds, his opinion is that Yitro came on the 2nd year after the Mishkan was erected. It says even furthermore, he says, it doesn't say that they built a new altar. It says that they brought sacrifice. That means that there was an altar already. Where was the altar? In the Mishkan. It says besides that, another proof, כתיב והודעתי את חוקי האלוקים ואת תורותיו. It says, and I will, it says in the Pasuk, again by Yitro, והודעתי את חוקי האלוקים ואת תורותיו. That I will show and I will inform the people about the laws of HaKadosh Baruch Hu of God, ve'et torotav, and the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And by the way, just as a side note, it says torotav, not torato. Torotav is in plural. Which Torah are we talking? It's more than one Torah. It's two. It's the oral and the written. V'hinei ze ahar matan Torah. So he says from here we see that Yitro came when? Before or after? After matan Torah. והעד הנאמן על דבריי, כי כן כתיב, he says, besides that, I'll prove it to you, it's written, אל המדבר אשר הוא עונה שם הר האלוקים. Very good, says Ibn Ezra. It says in the Pasuk that Yitro came where Am Israel was camping, Har HaElokim, next to the mountain of God. It means what? The revelation happened already. ואמר משה לעובב, שהוא יתרו, כאשר פירשתי פרשת ואלה שמות, כי חותן משה לא שב אל רעואל הקרוב אליו, כי אם לחובב, כי כן כתוב מבני חובב חותן משה. He says, ומשה אמר לו, כי כן ידעת חמתן במדבר. Oh, so he says, the fact is, later on we find Chovav, that Yitro was Chovav in Parashat, in Bamidbar, as we said. That's where Chovav was Yitro. וידענו כי ישראל עמדו במדבר סיני כמו שנה. And he says, it's known that Am Israel stayed at Mount Sinai for around 1 year. והנה דברי משה הוכיחו שאמר פרשת אלה הדברים, השם אלוקינו דיבר אלינו בחורב לאמור, רב לכם שבט בהר הזה. He says, what's the proof that they stayed for at least 1 year? Because it says in ספר דברים, השם אלוקינו דיבר אלינו. Moshe was talking to Am Israel, telling them, God spoke to us בחורב לאמור, רב לכם שבט בהר הזה. It's enough for you to sit to dwell בהר הזה, in this mountain. Which mountain? הר סיני. פנו סעו לכם, continue on your journey. והנה זה הזמן היה קרוב למסעם. He says this time was just before they continued on their journey. והוא אמר, ואומר עליכם בעת ההיא לאמור לא אוכל לבדי אתכם. At that time, Moshe told them, I can't handle it anymore. All this task of leading Am Israel. כי השם ירבה אתכם והנכם הם כוכבי השמיים לרוב. Why? Because it says again ספר דברים, God has multiplied you and you are like the stars of the heaven. וטעם להזכיר זה להם, כי השם אמר ליעקב הנה נפלך והרביתיך. It says, the reason that he told them that is because Hashem already said to Yaakov that I will multiply you, you'll be numerous. ונתתיך לקהל עמים, and you'll be like a big community, a lot of people. ונתתי את הארץ הזאת לזרעך אחריך, and I'll give this land to your descendants after you. והנה הטעם, כאשר ירבה זרעך אתן לו את הארץ. So the reason was, when you will have a lot of people, which means that you will be numerous, then you will get the land. על כן אמר השם אלוקיכם הרבה אתכם, והגיע הזמן שתרשו את הארץ. And that is why Moshe told them, Hashem has multiplied you, made you numerous. This is the time for you to conquer the land. ובעבור שאתם רבים לא יכולתי לבדי שאת אתכם. And since you are so numerous, I can't handle it alone anymore. והוצרכתי לתת עליכם, therefore I had to appoint, what? שרי אלפים, שרי מאות, as Yitro told them, judges for different cases. זאת הייתה עצת יתרו. יתרו is the one who gave him this idea. שנתן לו ממחרת בו למדבר סיני. This is happened the day after יתרו arrived to מדבר סיני. על כן, אמר משה לחובב שהוא יתרו, כמו שפירשנו נושאים אנחנו והוא השיב לו אלך. And therefore in Bamidbar, the conversation continues between Moshe and Yitro, where Moshe tells them, Nos'im anachnu, we are continuing our journey. Just after what? After Mount Sinai, we're continuing the journey. We want you to come with us. Vehu eshiv, and he answered, Yitro lo elech, I will not go with you. כי מלצי ואל מולתי אלך, וזהו וישלח משה את חותנו וילך לו לארצו. And this is what it says, וישלח, in this week's parasha, וישלח משה את חותנו וילך לו לארצו. That Moshe sent back Yitro, and he went back to his land. Which means, according to this, it's a beautiful way that the Ibn Hazar builds this case. It says, Parashat Yitro, the Sefer Shemot and Sefer Bamidbar are connected. There's a connection between them, and in this week's parasha, the conclusion is here, and it's not in Bamidbar. And what is the conclusion? After Moshe tells Yitro to come, Yitro says no. In this week's parasha it says, he sends them back to Midian. So it seems that the Ibn Ezra is of the opinion that En Mukdam Umeuhar B'Torah, that the text is not flowing, it's not a history book, and you have to connect back and forth. Okay? And therefore it continues on, and one more paragraph of the Ibn Ezra, just to conclude. ועתה אפרש למה נכנסה פרשת יתרו במקום הזה. He says, now I'll explain to you why Parashat Yitro, this paragraph of Yitro, is in between Amalek and the giving of the Torah. It says, בעבור שהזכיר למעלה הרעה שעשה עמלק לישראל. Since, just before that, before Parashat Yitro, the end of last week's Parashat Beshalach, we're talking about Amalek, or that all the evil that Amalek did to Am Israel, because Amalek were an evil nation. No one dared to start with Am Israel. The only ones who dared to get close to Am Israel and to attack them was Amalek. So they were evil people. So therefore he says, הזכיר כנגדו הטובה שעשה יתרו לישראל. So the Torah comes with who? With Yitro. To teach us, here are two Gentiles. Amalek on the one hand, and Yitro on the other. Amalek did evil with Am Israel, and Yitro, what did he do? He did good with Am Israel. Look at the difference. And that is why the Parashat Yitro comes immediately after Amalek to show you the difference between the nation of Amalek and Yitro. Okay? וכתוב ויחד יתרו על כל הטובה נתן לה עצה טובה ונכונה למשה ולישראל ומשה אמר ויתן לנו עיניים. The fact is, he gave a good advice to Am Israel, and Moshe even told them, you will be our guide, you will be our eyes, which means that he did good to Am Israel. והטעם שהאיר עיניהם, the fact is, he illuminated the eyes of Am Israel with his advice. He was a wise man, and therefore he gave all these good ideas and advice to Moshe Rabbeinu and to Am Israel. And this is what the Ibn Ezra says.
But there is, sounds like there is a little bit, it's not very accurate because you Rabbi compare a person and a nation.
Yes.
Like Yitro as a person, not
Yes.
like a representative of Midian.
It is he represents Midian, but he was the head of Midian. When he spoke, it's as if Midian spoke. Whatever he said went. So he's representing a nation as an individual. He's not an individual. He's an individual, but he's the head. He's like the president, the prime minister, the king. Kohen Midian. Kohen Midian means he was the priest.
But later on there was a war between Israel and Midian. So,
Fine. But the fact is, Yitro at that time, whatever he did, everyone listened. So he was good. He was good. And that's the difference between Amalek and Midian and Yitro. So this is the Ibn Ezra. On the other hand, the Ramban, Nachmanides, has a different approach to it. And it's interesting to see. So the Ramban, a long Ramban, I'm not going to go through all of it, but I'll share with you some ideas of the Ramban says. He says like this, כבר נחלקו רבותינו בפרשה הזאת. Says that our rabbis already have a mahloket. There's an arguments back and forth between the Chachamim about this parasha. יש מהם אומרים כי קודם מתן תורה ביתרו בסדר כסדר הפרשיות. Some say that Yitro came before Matan Torah, because this is the flow of the text. ויש מהם שאמרו שאחר מתן תורה בא. Others say he came when? After Matan Torah. וזה ודאי הסתייע מן הכתוב שאמר ויבוא יתרו חותן משה ובניו וישתנו משה למדבר אשר הוא חונה שם על האלוקים. He says actually that makes sense, exactly like the Ibn Ezra. Why? Because Yitro came to where? To Har HaElokim, the Mount of God, where they accepted the Torah. והנה אמר שבא אליו וחנותו לפני הר סיני שחנו שם שנה אחת. So he says there's an opinion. Which opinion? The opinion of the Ibn Ezra that they stayed 1 year there. Then Yitro came. וזה טעם אשר הוא חונה שם. And this is what the Torah says actually. It says אשר הוא חונה שם. That he was already camping there. חונה is in the past. He was camping already. He was already there. For how long? Ibn Ezra says 1 year. Eh? So he basically quotes the Ibn Ezra, okay? More or less word by word. But then comes the Ramban and says the following. V'im kol zeh ani shoel. He says, but I have a question. Al hada'at hazu, according to this opinion, כשאמר הכתוב וישמע יתרו כל אשר עשה השם למשה וישראל עמו כי הוציא את השם את ישראל ממצרים. When the Torah says that Yitro heard, what did he hear? The Torah says, whatever Hashem did to Moshe and Israel, that Hashem took them out of Mitzrayim. ולמה לא אמר ששמע מה שעשה למשה ולישראל במתן התורה שהוא מהנפלאות הגדולות שנעשו להם? Very good question, the Ramban says. Why wouldn't the Torah say, and Yitro heard, what did he hear? Matan Torah. The Ibn Ezra said that he came after. If he came after, should have said. What's the big thing that many things are Amalek, the Exodus, splitting of the Red Sea, but Matan Torah is the goal of everything. Torah doesn't say that. So the Ramban says, with all due respect to the Ibn Ezra and the opinions that hold like the Ibn Ezra, what is going on here? Right? And therefore, it continues on, and I'll just get to the end of the Ramban, and he says like this: "Vayishlach Moshe et chotno vayelech lo le'atzo." When the Torah says "Vayishlach Moshe et chotno," that Moshe sent his father-in-law, and he sent him where? To his land. שהיה זה בשנה הראשונה והלך לו אל ארצו וחזר אליו. What happened is, Yitro went, and then he came back. The Ramban says. וייתכן שהלך שם לגייר את משפחתו. Why did he go there? It says it's possible he went there to convert his family. וחזר למשה. He came back to Moshe. ועודנו בהר סיני, when Moshe and Am Yisrael was still in Har Sinai, כי קרוב הוא למדיין. Why? Because geographically speaking, Midian is very close to Har Sinai. So he came back to Har Sinai where he still, Moshe and Am Yisrael was still there. Okay? So therefore, וענה אותו, then Yitro tells him, he comes back a second time. He tells Moshe, I'm just coming to tell you that I'm not going with you. I'm going back to my land. They didn't have email or texting at that time, so you had to walk back to let him know what's going on. And then you went back. And therefore, התחנן לו Moshe מאוד. Moshe pleaded with him. ואמר לו, אל נא תעזוב אותנו. Told him, don't leave us here. והיית לנו לעיניים, you'll be our guide. ולא השיב אותו דבר, ונראה שקיבל דבריו ועשה כרצונו ולא עזבם. Says the Ramban, it seems, since Yitro did not answer back after Moshe told him, stay with us, what happened was, according to the Ramban, Yitro actually stayed. He didn't go anywhere. Right? So you see how it's the whole mystery what's going on here. Did he go back? He didn't go back. Even Ezra, the Ramban, okay?
But Rabbi, does he have the authority to convert his family? Because here it's written, Yitro returned home to convert his family.
Well, there is opinions like that. You're right. The Ramban says that that's possible.
But he doesn't have the authority to convert.
Why not? He became a Jew.
One Jew may not be enough. We have to see the regulations for conversion at that time.
At that time, it was pretty simple to convert.
Well, I should have been born there.
Right? But the fact is, it was pretty simple. And therefore, we went back to convert them. That's what the Ramban says. Okay? And that is why, by the way, interestingly, the Ramban says that at the time of Shaul, King Shaul later on, what happened was, היו בניו עם עמלק ובאו התחברו אל ישראל, היו ירושלים בני יהונדב בני רחב אולי במות משה עזר לעצור ובניו, ואפשר שהיה קני היושב במעמד משפחת יתרו ולא בניו, ועשה חסד עם כל המשפחה בעבורו כאשר עשה יהושע משפחת רחב. Okay, so Shaul, by the way, later on, because of all the good that Yitro bestowed upon Am Yisrael, the descendants of Yitro, Shaul told them to leave Amalek, to separate from Amalek, because Shaul knew the greatness of Yitro, and he didn't want to harm the descendants of Yitro, the people of the nation of Midian. So interestingly, this is the what the Ramban holds, which is different than the Ibn Ezra. Okay. Now, there's another opinion, which is the Abarbanel. What does the Abarbanel say? The Abarbanel, a third option, he agrees with the Ramban on one point and with the Ibn Ezra on the other. Is in the middle. So he wants to take a little bit of this, a little bit.
Yeah.
What does it say?
Real Jew.
A real Jew, right. He's a good diplomat, in between. So on the one hand, like the Ramban, the Abarbanel maintains that Yitro arrives before the revelation. Right? But he claims, however, that Moshe's father-in-law then remains with the Jews for 2 years, sharing in the experience of Matan Torah. Only one conversation takes place between Moshe and Yitro concerning Yitro's future plans. Agreeing with the Ibn Ezra, the Abarbanel believes that the dialogue occurs after the revelation, but it's also briefly referenced in Parashat Yitro 2 years before it occurs. So on the one hand, he holds like the Ramban, and on the other hand, he holds like the Ibn Ezra. Okay? Now, this Forno, interestingly, we'll see what this Forno has to say. This Forno says that Moshe's father-in-law returns to his homeland for practical reasons. Right? He suggests that Yitro believed that he could not, as at his advanced age, he was an old elderly man already, tolerate the environment of a new land. And therefore, Moshe was successful, however, in convincing him, Yitro, to join the Jews' historic journey. So he holds basically like the Ramban. Okay? Now there's a Sifri that quotes Yitro as offering arguments which in the centuries to follow will often be raised by those choosing to live in the diaspora, which is what? I will not join you because of my familiar obligation and because of my material success outside of the land. Which is an argument that many people have. Why don't they live in Israel? Why don't they do Aliyah? Because they have family obligations, they have parnasa, livelihood, and so on and so forth. Interesting. Okay? Now, there's other Chachamim that agree that Yitro returns to Midian, but there's higher motives for his decision. It's not just practical because of the fact that he's old, or because of the fact that he has family obligation, or parnasa, livelihood. There's an early source, which is Rabbi Eliezer Hamudai, Tana, okay? And he says that Moshe's father-in-law offers the following rationale. What is it? What good can I possibly do, Moshe, if I join you on this journey? A candle only makes a difference where it is dark. You, Moshe, are like the sun, while Aharon is like the moon. And therefore, in the face of your illumination, I, a mere candle, will have no effect at all. I will therefore return home to Midian, where I'll convert the members of my family, bringing them under the cover of the wings of the Almighty. So that brings Yitro to a different level. It's not something that is practical, but rather he's doing it l'shem shamayim, really for the sake of heaven. He understands he believes, he sees he sees the revelation is connected to God at this moment. He says, I can't leave it for myself, I have to share it with my family. The same way that I converted, they have to convert as well. Okay, so this is another interesting point. So we have the Ramban, we have the Ibn Ezra, we have this Forno, the Abarbanel, and different opinions. So the fact is, let's come back to the other question, which is, why does the Torah bother to record these events at all? Particularly the Matan Torah, the event that happened of accepting the Torah, where Yitro either was there or wasn't there. What difference does this make that if Yitro was there or not? And besides that, why doesn't the Torah give the final decision of Yitro? It's not clear what happened. He was there, he wasn't there, he came back, he spoke once, he spoke twice, and so on and so forth. So there's different answers that are given, and I'll share with you some of these answers. One of them is revelation is not a one-time event, but an ongoing phenomenon. Right? Revelation is not something that you see, okay, Har Sinai, and that's it, and that's it. No, it's something that continues on. The Torah is received anew in each generation through study, observance, and halachic application. Revelation unfolds not only in communal but in individual personal terms. At the foot of Har Sinai, each individual struggled with his own commitment to God's newly given law. Similarly, in each generation, as the Jewish nation renews its commitment to Torah, every individual struggles to determine his or her relationship with that law. Happens in every generation. It's not just something that happened to Am Yisrael in Har Sinai. And therefore, suddenly the Torah's intent becomes clear. And what is that? The text chooses Yitro. Why does it choose Yitro? The one individual present at Har Sinai, whose relationship to revelation most clearly mirrors our own across the ages. An outsider who did not personally witness the miracles of the Exodus, the parting of the Red Sea, the defeat of Amalek, a latecomer who's coming to heard about all these different miracles that happened, but he was a latecomer, and he was a latecomer to God's revelation. But still, the fact is, what happened? He came. Like us. We are latecomers. We weren't there. Maybe our neshamot were there, but we were not there. And therefore, the idea is the Torah wants to teach us something. The Torah has to record the fact that Yitro came. Why? To teach us that the same way that Yitro connected to Har Sinai and whatever happened, even though he wasn't there, according to some opinion, and he didn't see all the miracles, but he still, Vayishma, he heard, he came, he understood, so we have to do the same. Okay? The text then brackets the narrative of national revelation with the account of Yitro's individual internal struggle as he decides whether to accept or reject the laws given at Sinai, right? Who has the same struggles? Us. Should I accept it or I shouldn't accept it? Should I do this thing or I shouldn't do this thing? This is difficult to do. I want to sleep in. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. He had the same struggles. Okay. To affiliate with the Israelites as they begin their journey, or to return to the known comforts of home. Through this focus on Yitro, the Torah foreshadows the personal struggle of each Jew in every generation. So that is why Yitro is so important. And that is why the Torah records it. And it does it just in the middle between Amalek and Har Sinai, because he hears all these different stories about what happened. And he's struggling with it. Distant from Sinai, we too must decide whether or not to heed Matan Torah's eternal call. we must determine to what extent we will truly be part of our people's ongoing journey from revelation to the end of days. This is the idea. And therefore, Yitro's choice remains what? Open. We don't know what happened. He stayed, he didn't stay, in the text to indicate that for each of us, regardless of our background, our place in our people's saga is not a foregone conclusion. There are no assurances, no inherited certainties. Like Yitro, we face overwhelming choices as we map out our spiritual way, the path that we want to take. Concerning our place in the journey of our people, the jury is out until we decide. And the process of deciding courses through our entire lives. So that is why it's not clear if Yitro stayed or not, because this is exactly us. We have the same struggle that he did. And sometimes we are in and sometimes we are not. And that is why the Torah leaves it open like that, in order for us to be able to relate to the message of Yitro. Okay. So therefore, with this in mind, I think the points that we have to ponder upon is getting converts to Judaism. Why? Because Yitro was a convert. Right? And therefore what we have to think about is the same way that Yitro got this revelation when the Torah speaks about Vayishma. Shmi'ah, by the way. In English, how did they translate it? He heard, right? But it's more than that. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. What is Shema? To hear. To hear is to understand. Is to internalize the message and to put it deep next to your heart. And this is what Yitro did. Because you might ask the question, what happened to the rest of the world? Everyone heard. Shamu Amim Gazun, last week's Parashat, Parashat Shalach. Shamu Amim. The nations heard of what happened. Exactly like Yitro. But no one came. Why? Because they didn't have this Shema, this Shmi'ah, this understanding, this deep understanding that Yitro had. And since he had this deep understanding, and he really internalized this message, what was the obligation? What was the obligation of Moshe? It's to convert him. Here is someone who's really internalizing the message. So that's someone who is, certainly we will be honored to be part of Am Yisrael. He has to go through this Gerut, he has to go through the conversion. And therefore, when it comes to conversion, there's a few points that are important, and I read them to you. When a Bet Din is looking into, or a rabbi is looking into someone who wants to convert, what does he do? First of all, he has to look and see if, number one, this person fully understands why he's doing so. Because Yitro understood, Vayishma, he internalized, he really got deep into it and he understood it. Number two is recognizes that from our perspective, he is not required to convert. It's no obligation. Number three, spends time in serious study and comes to realize exactly what his decision to convert will entail. Exactly what Yitro did. And therefore, the idea is what? One word, commitment. And who had this commitment? Yitro. And that is why he converts. We embrace, we take him in, we say, God, Baruch haba. To the point that Moshe Rabbeinu in Pamidbar, as we saw, what did he tell him? You will be our guide, you will be our eyes. when we accept someone and convert him, we embrace him, we bring him in. It's an honor, right? Now therefore, if an individual through study and time really demonstrates that the desire that he wants to convert and a commitment to Jewish law and practice, we are obligated to convert him. And this is what Moshe did. After he hears that, he sees, he's so impressed by his father-in-law, tells him you have to be a part of our nation. And there are different sources, and I'll share some of you about where converts are held according to our sources. So there's one source that says the following. There's a specific mitzvah that we have, which is love the convert. Ve'ahavtem et hager. This commandment exists over the above the general edict, love for your friend as for yourself. This is besides that. We have another mitzvah, a second mitzvah when it comes to the ger, to the convert, which also applies to converts. Okay, so you have two mitzvot: to love someone as you love yourself, and also to love the convert. That's number two. God himself is described in the Torah as one who loves the convert, providing him with bread and garment. That's number two. Number three, conversion features prominently at pivotal moments in our nation's history through the contributions of important figures such as Yitro and Ruth HaMoaviyah, David HaMelech, Mashiach. So you see how important it is. And therefore you see that's why exactly this idea of Yitro is connected to Ma'abad Har Sinai, to Mount Sinai, because on Mount Sinai, what did we do? We accepted upon ourselves the yoke of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Who does that? The convert does that as well. And that is why it's connected. That is why Parashat Yitro, actually, the Ten Commandments are in Parashat Yitro. Why do we have a parashat that is called Yitro? Because the same way that Am Yisrael accepted the yoke of God, Ol Malchut Shamayim, Yitro did the same. Number four, we beseech God in our daily prayers to judge us favorably in the merit of our nation's righteous individuals, including the Gerei Tzedek, righteous converts. We say it every day in the Hamidah. Imagine. In the merit of righteous converts. Number five, more significantly, as noted before, the laws of conversion themselves are derived by the steps taken by the Israelites and those who stand with them at Sinai before and during revelation. We are, in a real sense, a nation of converts, our Jewish identity determined by our ancestors' acceptance of Torah law at Sinai, or thereafter, exactly what we said. And the last question is, does Yitro eventually convert to Judaism? We said that he did. But really it remains it could be discussed. Some say yes, some say no. There's a whole discussion about it. But irrelevant to that, the fact is that if Yitro did convert, there's certainly he was welcomed with open arms by Moshe and the Jewish people. And this is what the Torah wants to basically relay to us. One of the messages that the Torah wants to relay to us is that if Yitro did convert, it was Am Yisrael and Moshe Rabbeinu certainly were happy about it, but there's a lot of message about it, there's a lot of mystery about Yitro, and certainly I don't think we were able to answer all the questions, to get to a concrete answer. But at least it gave us some idea of who Yitro was, and some ideas of either he came before, he came after, we're not sure yet, but the fact is it still remains to be discussed. It gives us a little glimpse and a little flavor of Parashat Yitro. Thank you very much.